Hey guys, it's Mason with Digital Capital. Today I want to be talking about what I think is one of the most exciting projects in the cryptocurrency space right now. It's called Neo. And before I dive into the project, I want to give you guys a little bit of a background about Bitcoin and Ethereum, which I'll use to make some comparisons to the Neo network. Let's get started. Bitcoin is a distributed ledger technology, often referred to as a blockchain. The main thing that this blockchain does right now is it keeps track of Bitcoin user balances. It does this by only adding on new blocks of information, thus keeping the entire history of the blockchain intact. Instead of deleting user balances, we can mark those balances as spent transactions. Thus, the entire history of the transactions remains intact on the blockchain, while the user balances themselves change. There's a lot of nuances to how this works that I'm not going to be covering in this video, but the result is a technology-driven way to empower people to exchange value without having to go through third-party intermediaries. Ethereum is expanding on the idea of a blockchain. Instead of just keeping track of user balances, they want to work in a virtual machine that can run smart contracts, capable of doing all sorts of different decentralized applications. I'd like to explain this a little bit more in detail through a simple example. Let's take a look at sending somebody a message from iPhone to iPhone. The old way of sending the message would be that I would type it on my device. The message would then travel through some big company's data center before eventually the message is received on the person's phone that you were trying to send the message to. With a decentralized application, it's possible to take that text message, split it up into smaller pieces, and have multiple computers around the world help process that text message to get it to the final recipient. The biggest difference here being that with the decentralized application, no one person is ever going to have your entire file on their server at any given time. What I think is really cool about these decentralized applications is that as long as the code is built right and it's open source so we can verify it, not even the person who programmed it from the beginning can break the rules that they set out. Okay, so with that primer, I want to dig into why I like the Neo project so much and what differentiates it from Ethereum and the other networks that are out there today. Rather than just focus on the exchange of value and the development of smart contracts, Neo has a much loftier goal. They're calling their grand vision the Neo Smart Economy. And they're really breaking this down into three different pieces, which I'll dig into in a bit. But I want to start off by making a comparison between what they're calling the smart economy and what we call today our smartphones. When we look at smartphones today, their initial feature, calling people, is hardly the focal point of their ability. This is what happens when the view shifts from having regular phones to having smartphones. We now have the ability to organize ourselves through social media, navigate streets we've never seen before, search an oracle of information, play amazing games, and record anything in high resolution all at the click of a button. In some ways, we can view this shift from regular phones to smartphones in the same way that we view the shift from our regular economy to our smart economy. Our smart economy is going to include a lot of decentralized applications that enhance our society. Things like applications for the transfer of property, apps that help us prove our identity, and apps for computing power and storage, in addition to hundreds more that are being worked on by developers all across the globe. Neo breaks down the smart economy into three distinct categories, the first of which are digital assets. Digital assets are going to be programmable assets that are stored on the Neo blockchain in a decentralized, trustful, and highly transparent manner. All of these assets are going to be registered on the blockchain, and they should be tradable. The second piece of the Neo Smart Economy is what they're calling digital identity. Now, this could refer to an individual, an organization, or possibly even an electronic entity such as a car or a vast multitude of other devices. Having this digital identity built into the platform at its core is one of the things that I think sets Neo apart from the other competitors in the space right now. It'll also provide a much simpler integration for the platform for certain applications like the Key, whose focus is entirely on digital identity verification. So one day you might be able to use this digital identity to log into all of your applications instead of having to have a separate login and password for each different one that you use. And finally, the third piece of the Neo Smart Economy is what's referred to as smart contracts. I did mention these before, but if you aren't familiar with the idea, it was originally credited to Nick Szabo, who in 1994 described them as smart contracts that will execute corresponding terms when a pre-programmed condition is triggered. It's a pretty simple idea, but it forms the basis of all decentralized applications. And with Neo, they're building a virtual machine which is going to be capable of running these smart contracts. And with that, we can build an almost limitless amount of decentralized applications that will hopefully one day automate all areas of our life. This is similar to what Ethereum is trying to do with smart contracts, except that Neo provides a few additional benefits to contract writers. With Ethereum, these contracts can only be written in one programming language, a brand new one called Solidity. This is an extra barrier to entry for smart contract programmers to get started. Not only do they have to learn the complex nature of writing code for the blockchain, but they're also going to have to do it with new syntax and function calls that they're foreign to. Neo is attempting to simplify this new programmer experience by writing compilers in a multitude of commonly used programming languages. They've already gotten started on writing compilers for JavaScript, Python, C#, and Java, as well as many more languages on the way. Now, some of these compilers aren't fully fleshed out, they don't work to the fullest extent, but the development is coming along really nicely, and I'm definitely going to be checking in on these compilers over the next few months to see the progress that they make. If you're interested in following that progress, you can actually check out their monthly newsletter, which they post on Medium. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the development of the platform and the community. I think that's actually one of the biggest strong suits for the Neo platform. They have the Neo core team, which are mainly the members at the top of this page. They've been responsible for building the core of Neo. That includes the original source code, the original smart contract compilers, the virtual machine, and a whole lot more. But then we have, starting with Fabio here, the City of Zion members, which is an open source group of coders that came together to collaborate on the Neo project. They've built one of the best wallets that I've actually seen in the entire crypto space, called the Neon wallet. They also built a Neo blockchain explorer called Neo Scan. And as I mentioned earlier, they're creating compilers in additional programming languages to make the Neo blockchain as accessible for the most amount of programmers as possible. In addition to the Neo core team and the City of Zion team, which would already be a lot, there's another group that's just started out of China, calling themselves New Econo Lab. They joined the Neo ecosystem in November 9th of 2017. And the first major project that they're taking on is one that I really like, called the Neo Dune. It's a new hardware wallet that they're designing from scratch to rival some of the best hardware wallets that are out there today, including the Nano Ledger S. They have some pretty lofty plans for this thing, including the possibility of a biometric scanner, which would allow you to log in using your biometrics, such as maybe a fingerprint or a face scan, instead of having to remember a 4 to 8 digit code. In addition to having these great developer groups, Neo has also been doing a globe tour recently. They're hosting developer conferences and different hackathons with a whole lot of money and prizes to spur the development of their ecosystem. If you are interested in becoming a Neo developer or helping out the project, or if you just want to learn more, I would highly suggest going to one of these events and checking out all the exciting development that's happening around the platform. I've got a lot of other things that I'd like to talk about regarding the Neo ecosystem, but this video is getting a bit long, so I'm going to separate it into a few different parts. The next part is going to focus entirely on the Neo consensus algorithm called Delegated Byzantine Fault Tolerance, and I'm pretty excited for that one, so hopefully you check back for part 2, and I'll see you guys next time.